Okay, so this is the last section, and I probably should have covered this because I noticed that 7.5 had like 4 problems at the end that was talking about dilations and scale factors. When I looked at the problems for 7.6, they are, I think, the last 4 or 5 from 7.5. So the good news is, you guys, if you did 7.5 already, you don't need to do 7.6 because they're the same problems as the end of 7.5. If you didn't understand the last few problems at the end of 7.5, after this lesson, if you want to go back and redo 7.5, that's fine with me. Right. I know, you're disappointed. I know. Okay, so dilations just means a similar figure that is either magnified bigger or shrunk smaller, but it's still similar. Okay? If it's a dilation in the coordinate plane, a lot of times they'll just use it from the origin and then expand it out from the origin, magnify. If it gets bigger, project it, a bigger shape of the exact same figure that you started with. But it's really just, if I have this triangle, maybe I'm making it bigger by some scale factor. Okay, and the scale factor is usually labeled K. For whatever reason, there's just small cursive K is the scale factor. And if the dilation, if they say that this is 3 times this, okay, then the dilation K is 3 over 1. If this is, if I want to go from the larger one to the smaller one, it's just 1 over 3. Okay, so you have to pay attention, like on a quiz or test. If the original image, which they always label with a capital letter like A or B or C, if the original image, A or B, and the dilated image is A prime or B prime, it's got the little, like quotation, not quite quotation mark. A is original, A prime is the dilated. If they say find the scale factor from A to B, and A is small and B is large, you know the scale factor has to be greater than 1. Because every side of A I'd multiply by something bigger than 1 to get a bigger image. Okay, so as an example, if A is this and A prime is this, I know my scale factor, K, must be greater than 1. If my original image is bigger than my new image, this is A and this is A prime, the dilated image, then I know my scale factor has to be less than 1. It's shrinking. It's a fraction of the original. Okay? And it's always greater than 0. There's always a greater than 0. It could be 0.1, but it's still going to be greater than 0. Okay, so if it's shrinking, K has got to be between 0 and 1. If it's blowing up or magnifying, enlarging I should say, then K is always be greater than 1. Okay? Looking at, let me find it, the textbook check. This is not it, is it? This is one for 6? No, this is 7.5. I need 7.6. So all dilations have a blank and a scale factor. What do you think the answer is here? A center, the center of dilation. A lot of times, like I said, the center is usually at the origin, but sometimes they'll make the center somewhere else. It's easiest if it's at the origin. But they'll have to tell you where the center is so you know what point is being magnified or enlarged. Okay? So here's an example. Triangle ABC is a dilation of triangle DEF. So ABC is after. The red triangle is after. The black triangle is the original, and red is what happened after the dilation. So I'm looking at the scale factor, and I can use 20 and 12. And the part that gets confusing is it 20 over 12 or 12 over 20? Well, did it get smaller or bigger? It got smaller, so we know the fraction has to be less than 1. If I go 20 over 12, that's not less than 1. So it's got to be 12 over 20, and then I have to simplify it. So 3/5. Letter A should be the scale factor. Does that make sense? So a lot of times how I solve these problems is I just figure out my ratio. It's 12 over 20, 20 over 12, I don't know. Simplify it, and then decide, does it have to be less than 1 or greater than 1? Did my image get smaller? And if so, it's got to be less than 1. Did my image get bigger after the dilation? If so, it's greater than 1. So I know which way to flip my fraction. Does that make sense? All right. If the dilated image is smaller than the original, the scale factor will be less than 1 but greater than 0. True. Dilations are only true for similar figures. True. A dilated image is going to be similar to the original. So it only works when they're similar figures. And then finally, are these figures similar? Yeah. If you take each one of these corresponding sides and make it a fraction and simplify all the fractions, they should all be the same fraction if they are similar. And in fact, they are. Okay, so if you didn't finish 7.5 yesterday, because there were an additional like 4 or 5 problems on dilations and scale factors, then go ahead and finish. If you didn't understand it yesterday and missed a lot of them, then go back through and do those again. If you're done with 7.5, I've got the chapter review, and you can work on that for the rest of class then. Okay? And it will be due tomorrow.